You're at the dinner table, you say no phones, but you're on your phone. You say no tech in the bedroom, but you're on your phone until you pass out and your phone falls on your chest as you're falling asleep. All these little things they see. Otherwise, you become a hypocrite. So we need to model positive behavior and limit the amount of time you are on social media.
Welcome to the Dad Central Show, hosted by Ed Gow Jr. and Drew Solon. We know dads want to see their kids succeed, but they don't always know how to get there. This show gives dads the tools they need to raise confident and successful kids. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dad Central Show. My name is Drew Solon. I am your co-host, but today I am solo without my co-host, Ed Gow Jr. The Dad Central Show obviously is focused on engaging and supporting dads to be the best they can be and helping them in every aspect. And today we are going to be talking about technology and kids. And so, but before we get to that, I just want to remind you that the Dad Central Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there is a positive impact. So this idea of technology and kids, we reached out to our audience a few months ago, and we asked dads, what are the challenges that you're facing? What are the things that maybe keep you up at night or you struggle with? And we heard loud and clear that the idea of technology and their kids and how to manage it, how to navigate it, some of the concerns and fears that you might have about where technology is going and how that's going to impact your kids growing up. And this whole idea of the social media. And anyways, there's a lot of questions. And so today, I think we're going to have a great conversation because we have Paul Davis. Paul Davis is a social media and online safety educator. And I think you're going to love what you have to hear today. And we're going to really explore this topic. So, Paul, I'd love to welcome you to the show. Thanks for being here. Your information is very timely, very relevant, and very much needed. So just thanks so much for what you're doing and for coming onto the show and being willing to talk about it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. Well, we typically start the show with a little bit of backstory on our guests, just so people can get to know a little bit more about you. So why don't you, maybe the backstory for you, why don't you give us a little bit of insight into how you, got to this point and how social media and online safety is something that you talk about on a regular basis today?
I've dedicated my whole career to information technology and cyber. And this is right now, 32 years in it. 12 years ago, now I'm going to correct myself, about 13 years ago now, the principal of my daughter's school approached me with a simple question. He said, Paul, you're a tech guy. Why are kids getting in trouble with all this technology that was meant to make life better? I said, because parents gave their kids too much technology at a young age, and parents are completely oblivious as to what their kids are doing with it online. I said that back about 13 years ago. It's still relevant today. So he said, can you do me a favor? Can we speak to the kids? I said, yeah, no problem. Now, I mean, very straightforward. At that point, I always spoke to CEOs and CFOs, boring people. And I thought, how am I going to deliver a message to these kids, grade 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Because, my demeanor, my style, I don't know how they're going to respond, but I really love my daughter's principal. I want to do a favor. I did it. I made 2 presentations, one for grade 4, 5, 6, one for grade 7, 8. Went back to work, but the Q&A afterwards was really cool. The looks on their faces were cool. And I thought, that's it. Then I got a phone call from another principal. And then I looked at my wife. I said, you know what? I'm going to take 2 years off of doing what I'm doing. I just want to go and educate. This is fun. But I think this will end in about 2 years. Well, at the 2-year point, I made another commitment to my wife. I said, all right, when my youngest daughter graduates high school, that's it. I'm done. Well, I lied a second time because there's no end in sight. And here we are almost 13 years later, 770,000 students in person in 6 provinces in Canada, 5 states, along with 95,000 virtually, along with law enforcement across North America. When I say I love what I do, I love what I do. If people say, you love your job, well, it's not a job. It's a passion. I literally wake up every day in a different city, province, state, country, and I get to deliver a message. I mean, I'm living my dream, except the thing is, I never set forth on this journey. It happened by chance. Perhaps you want to call it fate. I actually do call it fate because it was a chance meeting with a request from a principal to help solve a problem. And then it just took off. And I've always bled tech. It's in my DNA. I still love it. I attend regular conferences. I research every day. It's in my blood. But educating kids is something I never knew was what I wanted to do. It's actually what I want to do. It's what I continue to want to do. Why? Because of one conversation. So call it fate. I do. And that's where I am today.
Hmm. Great. Thanks so much for that background, that intro. The one part that I heard in particular is you're a dad,
Yeah.
right? So you not only have the technology background and understanding, you're also a parent. And one of the first things you said in response to the principal was parents are giving their kids too much freedom with this technology. And you said that was 12 years ago. And wow, has technology changed from 12 years ago to even today?
Right.
So maybe let's focus on this part of you as a dad. Talk to me about what it was like for you as a dad at that point, being approached by a principal, but also being a dad and thinking, what am I doing with my children and how am I managing this technology process for them?
So I think it's important to qualify that the rules that I had in place as a tech dad with two girls didn't seem to be restrictive. They didn't seem to be um, archaic. They seemed very common sense like, which is, I made sure technology never made their way its way into their bedrooms. I respected the rules. They never got social media until after the age of actually 13, even though 13 is the age. I didn't give them smartphones until the end of grade 8. Those three things that I've said are now the pillars of my message. But what's
Mm,
interesting is that every cyber parent that I've ever met has effectively the same rules. They never allow technology in their kids' bedrooms. A lot of them hold off social media as long as possible, but at the very least, the terms of service, 13 years of age, which is North America wide. And when I say this to parent audiences, traditionally what I do is I walk into a school, I speak to kids, and then in the evening I come back and speak to parents, which is very important. And I say this to parents like, how is it that we knew this? We didn't get together and say, okay, this is going to be the rule. Like, we all kind of knew it because perhaps we were in the field and it made sense to us that you're empowering a child with a device in their bedroom by themselves with the door closed, connected to internet. And kids are curious, which is an amazing gift we've given them when we brought them onto this earth. Never, ever squash a child's curiosity, but it must be cultivated, must be guided because we are parents, we're responsible for them regardless of our situations in life and how many jobs we may have to work or how busy our schedules are or how many things we're juggling. We have to focus on our kids' online safety, which means we need to pay attention to them. Well, when we looked at these rules and said, all right, well, that makes sense. You're not going to have tech in the bed. All right, that alleviates a problem. We're not going to have social media until you're a certain age. Well, that alleviates a problem because of how many kids are being cyberbullied and impacted online because they're on platforms that aren't old enough to be on. To us, that made sense. And when I deliver that message to parents, I say what's common in our world doesn't seem to be so common outside of the cyber world because I'm talking to your kids, and kids in grade 4 are bragging on being on TikTok. Kids in grade 4 are bragging on having, the latest and greatest smartphone. Kids in grade 4 are bragging about using their tech in the bedroom. So when my daughters were brought up with these rules, they weren't restrictions, they were just rules, and they respected my rules because there was no other option. They had pressure, don't get me wrong, because they saw other kids. I'll give you a perfect example, I should say, which is a great story. When my daughter was 11 years old, I will never forget when she walked up to me and said, I need a Facebook account. I said, you don't, but why do you think you need one? Well, all my friends have it. Now, at the time, I was very invested in my daughter's school. I was the treasurer. I knew a lot of parents, and I knew that what she was saying was over exaggerated because half the kids didn't have this platform, right? But to her, she was the only one she needed. And I said, it's not happening. Get over it. And, there was a bit of, sadness, but she also understood because I constantly would communicate with her. When she turned 13, I will never forget this day. In the evening, after all her happy birthday celebrations are done, I remember walking up to her, put my arm around her and said, hey, let's open up that Facebook account. And she looked at me just about a year and a half removed from when she asked me for it. And she said, Dad, Facebook's for old people. And I thought, okay, wait, whoa. A year and a half ago, you needed it so badly. You were the only one. And now all of a sudden you don't want it. And so when I share that story, and when I talk about keeping the rules firm, it's because I know things change all the time. What a kid apparently needs today will be passe tomorrow. But if you give into that, because you feel guilty that they're the only one without it. They press you, they throw temper tantrums. We're going to fail them because when we give it to them and they're subjected to something they shouldn't have been at a very, very young age, we fail them. But what they begged you for may be completely irrelevant in 5 months, 10 months, a year and a half down the road. But because you caved for that one small portion of their life, their impact, because remember, Anna, there's a saying, you know, and I know it, you can't unsee what you've seen. So the rules are the foundation for online safety, which I guess will segue if I can. I tell parents here are the three pillars. Number one, no technology in a child's bedroom. The number one question I get is, well, until what age? You can, whatever age you want. My daughters never were allowed to bring smartphones into the bedroom until they became an adult. They can do it if they want to now, never up until, and sometimes they don't even do it as adults because now they're just over 18. Rule number two, no social media until you are 13. Let's just respect the terms of service. Now, when parents ask me as a friend, well, do you think 13 is the right age? No, I think it should be older. But I cannot instill values and morals in a presentation. I got to go by, terms of service. Rule number three, no smartphone until middle 10th of grade 8. And that has nothing to do with any movement about grade 8 is the age. When you look at a child and how they're being impacted by the device and distraction, well, I've always had a goal. I want them to get out of elementary school with the gifts of human interaction, making eye contact, reading facial expression, respecting their peers, respecting their teachers, their principals, and engaging, not always walking around with a device attached to their palm, being distracted and not able to focus because it is taking away their focus. That's clearly been proven. So when you follow these three pillars, and this does work, you'll notice that kids in that age group under the age of 13 are more focused in school. They're statistically less likely to be cyberbullied. They're not going to make poor choices online. They're not going to have their technology in their bedroom at 2 o'clock in the morning being subjected to inappropriate content. We're doing a lot of value to our kids by implementing some simple rules, but it takes effort. And it takes effort from all the parents involved in our children's lives.
So well said in many ways. And there's a lot in what you shared that I'd love to, over this conversation, continue to unpack. One of the things that stood out to me early on, though, was the commonality between us in the cyber world, essentially, in terms of how we mitigate some of these challenges and protect our children.
Mhm.
And so, for those of us who are not in that cyber world, can you bring us into that world so we understand why it is so important that these three pillars that you just talked about need to be enforced? Can you give some insight for us who are not in that space?
You would never allow your child to take the keys to your car and just go and learn by themselves. It's dangerous. Why would you allow a child to take a device that connects them globally to this thing called the internet to explore? We must be there to guide them and cultivate their curiosity. Because if a child decides to take the keys to a car and go and learn, well, they're probably going to get into an accident and it's going to be not good. If a child's exploring by themselves without our guidance behind closed doors at 2 o'clock in the morning, they're going to make poor choices. They're going to see things they should never see. So when I say no tech in the bedroom, technology in the bedroom it's a no tech zone. The bedroom should be a place, obviously, to sleep, meditate, read a book. I don't care. Get the tech out of the bedroom because their curiosity behind closed doors has been proven over and over again to be hurtful. And when you give a child a device at a young age with unfiltered access to the internet, we've got a problem. Smartphones is just, it's something, and listen, some cyber parents I've met gave a kid a smartphone in grade 6. Some gave it to them in grade 10. So there's no real, we're not all on the same page when it comes to that. We're pretty much in the same range, not definitively, middle 10th of grade 8. But social media, I know cyber parents who forbid their children to have social media, and the kids are not upset. They're not angry. They're understanding. They have to go through a period of, okay, I get it. I know what you do for a living. You get this better than most people. I do a lot of work, and I have a lot of police officer friends, and so when I see what they have to go through when they ask for help, when I have to help parents based on what their child has been exposed to because they're on platforms they're not allowed to be on. To us, it just makes common sense that, you know what, give your child technology. And by the way, when I say I believe technology in my younger presentation, I actually tell them where they should be online. I talk about coding, blogging, app development, robotics, podcasting. I'm getting so many kids in grade 4, 5, 6 interested in podcasting. I'm getting teachers to open up podcasts. I'm getting school principals to open. Like when I tell them you got to stop doing this, but here's all the stuff you can do. It's amazing that they're more receptive because okay, they may not like that I told them you got to stop doing this kind of stuff, which you're not old enough to be on. But then when you give them the other options, which parents are not doing, and that's lack of education, and I get that's okay. But now they've heard it. If parents can run with it, you know what? Time on a screen can actually be okay. Podcasting is an amazing way to express yourself. Creating your own vlog, creating your own blog, open up a website. There's so many things you can do, which we know to be positive. We just need to educate them and inspire them. And parents need to take it to the next level. Say, all right, you know what? Got it. Made a poor choice. You're 9 years old. You should absolutely not be on TikTok. This is what you can be exposed to. This is the content that it's influencing you. I made a poor choice. I'm going to correct it. And you're not on there until at least maybe 13, 14, 15, whenever I decide. That smartphone, you really didn't need in grade 4. You pressured me into it. Or I use the excuse, in case of an emergency, I'll get you a flip phone. And by the way, flip phones are amazing. And the tech in the bedroom, all right. I think that's now common understanding that we will not isolate a child behind closed doors to this thing called the internet. And when you put all that together, for some reason it gels, I guess, if you come from a tech background. But if you don't and you don't understand it, and this is perfectly acceptable because it's not the easiest thing to understand. We can make it, we can simplify it with a bit of education, which is part of what I do. Then when you understand it, you're more receptive to saying, all right, I get it now. Because he just talked about the risks associated with it. He talked about the age requirements, which perhaps, let's be honest, Drew, how many of you read the terms of service? How many of you read it from the first word to the last word? How many of you actually leave the terms of service and go to privacy policies? But buried in there is an age requirement, and people seem to, skip over that or say, "Well, okay, does it really apply to me?" Yeah, respect it because one of the things I like to instill with kids is respecting rules. They guide us in the classroom, they guide us when we play sports. We have rules as parents. They have to be respected, and there are rules online, so we need to respect them equally as much. But that's in an effort to protect our kids. So when we apply what I call the 3 pillars for online safety, and parents understand why I deliver it in that capacity, they're more receptive to saying, all right, got it. Now, here's the biggest challenge, Drew. We have to admit we messed up and then correct it. And there's no shame in admitting you messed up. There's shame in not correcting it because then we fail our kids. You learn that you made a poor choice, you correct it, you do better for your kid. I'm not the best dad in the world. I rock as a cyber dad, but I've made poor choices in other capacities. But I learned from those experts to say, hey, here's how you can deal with things. And you know what? I adjust. And I've always been one to admit, say, you know what? Messed up on that. I'm correcting it right now. I'll even admit it to my wife. I'll admit it to my kids, but I will correct it. I'm not ashamed to say I didn't know because I'm not an expert in every aspect of life, especially parenting, but I learn every day. So when parents come to me, I'm there to assist them in that capacity in an effort to correct it. But the problem is the peer pressure that they will feel when they try and correct it. And that's where we have to step up our game. And when I say we need involvement from all the parents in our children's lives, they have to step up equally because here's the problem. Kids will play parents when they see there's a discrepancy. So let's say parents are in the same home together. If those parents are on the same page, kids will play them. But what about the parents that are not in the same home and the kid has 2 homes to go to? Now we got a problem. Why? Because those adults probably dislike each other to a certain capacity. And so to find common ground for the benefit of your child can be a challenge. And I do not have the answer to that, but I do tell parents in my session in the evening, regardless of how much you dislike each other, you need to find common ground for the sake. So when I say go home and implement certain rules, make sure you're both on the same page. And this is a very sad story, Drew. Parents will tell me that kids play homes against each other. So the home with rules, the kid wants no time there. The home with no rules, the kid wants all the time there. And it's kind of interesting that, this is a dad show because who's guilty of the home with no rules? Dads. And
Mm.
when I look at the stats over, I mean, 12 plus years. So I'm giving you what I see. When I see a mother walk up to me and she's like, I'm trying so hard, except my ex will allow our child in their bedroom at 2 o'clock in the morning, playing Call of Duty. They're going to school sleep deprived. Their marks are suffering. We're letting them down. So, when I got your invitation to come back on, I mean, I really appreciate it because I'm here to send a really strong message to dads is that we need to step up our game. And I'll tell you another stat. When I look at my audience every night, and I speak on average 4 nights a week, I'm very, very lucky. It's 80 to 90% moms.
Mm.
We need more dads invested in our kids' lives on this topic. It is not a you go and take care of that, I'll take care of something else. That has to change. We need to be invested equally in our children's lives and not make it a one parent objective. It must be a dual parent, or regardless of how many parents in the child's life, you must all be equally invested. Otherwise, kids will fall through the crack. And I know I apologize to you for going off on a bit of a tangent there, but it just led in one thing to another.
Well, what I hear is the passion that you have for this topic, for the importance of it, and how it impacts um, children in particular, but the whole family is affected by it, and potentially negatively if we don't, as you say, step up, take the time, do what's necessary to protect the children from these types of situations. And there are, as you said, three pretty simple pillars in terms of to understand, but very challenging to apply given all the different contexts.
Yeah.
One of the things, I mean, there's a lot that you shared, and I just love your message. I love the importance of it. Um, the sense I'm getting is, in particular, is the power of being able to communicate to both the child but also other parents in that process. So maybe if you can talk to us about communicating with children. You're the one who's presenting to a lot of kids that are our kids, right? They're grade 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the age where we want to be able to influence them positively. And clearly, your message is positively influencing them. So, what can parents learn from how you're communicating or what you're communicating to really get through to our children that the importance of this, and when we do implement these rules, that it's for their benefit?
The key, I've always said this, the key to my success with students is delivering a message at their age level. So I actually have multiple presentations. So it's grade 4, 5, 6, grade 7, 8, or depending the school district I'm in, the province or the state, it could be grade 7, 8, 9. And then I have another one for high school. And
Okay.
the more technical, the more in your face, we definitely connect at their level. So the
Mm.
respect is gained because I speak their language. Now, I'm saying this respectfully to parents. They're not going to have that same level unless they have a tech cyber background.
Okay.
The challenge parents have is that when they share something, which makes a lot of sense, most kids will do the eye roll saying you're exaggerating or you're talking about.
Mm.
When I leave a school, I get parents walking up to me saying, my kid came home and said, yeah, you are right. Okay. So the parent perhaps knew the right answer. I came in and validated it because if there's one thing I've learned about speaking to kids, they don't like being told what to do.
Mm.
The key to my success between grade 7 and 12 is that I define how things work and then I guide them. They may not like it because they know I know as much and more than they do, what they're doing, how they're acting, how they're speaking. And then as a result, I guide them based on the data. See, I do not deliver a presentation based on values, morals, ethics, religion, spirituality. It could be important to everyone listening and to myself. But in a cyber presentation, my message should not be skewed by political bias or religious bias or religious viewpoint. Give them facts and then give them guidance based on those facts. They're more receptive to understanding and respecting it. So that's the advantage I have. When I come back to parents, I don't get as technical. I got to talk more from a parental level because otherwise a lot of it goes over parents' heads. Respect. I mean, we're not all in the field. And remember, a lot of kids can outsmart their parents. So
Mm.
if I'm able to speak to those kids and connect with them and give them that aha moment, and then the parents come in, listen to a message, when they go home and have conversation, there's more connection because the kids heard their message, the parents heard their message, And not every kid wants their parent to see me. I have parents come see me and say, I'm here because my kid said not to go. Perfect. I love the reverse marketing feature. Why? Because they know that that kid is probably concerned about something that they're going to learn that might impact. And I don't want to take anybody's fun away. My objective is to protect kids and, empower parents. But when you look at a whole day and you look at how kids learn and how parents learn, I make for the conversations to be much easier. Having said that, the concern that I see is that although I'm going to empower parents, we have a issue with, depending on the community I visit, on parent turnout. So this is horrible to say, but depending on a part of a city, forget a city, a part of a city, one night could be a stellar audience. The next night could be 15 people showing up. That's not helping. Now, why do I structure my day to speak to kids and parents? Because if I get the bad parent audience, at least I got to the kids. And that can spark conversation with the teachers and with the parents. And then the parents were the bonus. If I speak to the kids and have an amazing parent audience, that school has been fulfilled in terms of my goal. But the worst case scenario, and I call this really good, I got through all those kids. It could be 200, 300, it could be 1,000, but I connected with them because I had a captive audience for an hour for all their sessions to educate and empower them. Now, the one thing I've learned is that high school parents traditionally have checked out. They think that their kids are the responsibility of the school. They don't need to attend. They're good. Furthest from the truth. Elementary schools are very much checked in, but again, it's peaks and valleys sometimes, depending where I'm speaking. But high schools consistently across the board, and again, unfair to say, unless it's an independent school, a private school, those audiences are always huge. Otherwise, high schools across the board, yeah, I'm okay with it. The school can take care of it. Not my responsibility. They're a teenager, and we need to be more invested in our high school students because of what's going on in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the challenge that I face. But if I'm able to connect with the kids and the parents, it makes for greater conversation. I'll give you an example. Now school's done for me, but I still do events outside of school. And yesterday I did a whole day of fundraising events. I did actually 4 presentations yesterday. And one of the presentations is something I started back in 2017 outside of school. It's called the mother-daughter presentation. It's a very intense conversation about sexting, sexuality, social media, human trafficking. It's intense. And my goal is to make sure that, number one, my audience is comfortable. That's why it's the mother-daughter presentation. When they leave, I break the ice so that there's communication on a very sensitive topic that a lot of kids are afraid to speak to their parents about. In a previous session, I had what's called a parent-teenager presentation. So skewed a little differently, but regardless of the parent, the gender, that's for them. My goal is to break the ice and make sure there's conversation. Every time I do that session, Drew, it's always full. Parents are invested. They come out with their kid. I feel amazing because they made the effort to come out. They found the time to do it. They knew it was sensitive. They knew it wasn't going to be an easy conversation. That is my fulfillment when I see that. At a school, I can't mandate those parents to come out. Therein lies the challenge. We want them to. We want to give them every reason to. And I never sell fear. You should never sell fear. I could sell out a parent evening by making it all fearful. I don't do that. Other people may do it for whatever respective industry they're in because that's what draws an audience. That should not be the reason you get off the couch and come and see me. You get off the couch and come and see me to protect our kids from getting into horrible scenarios where it becomes that bad story. So I want them to be invested proactively, not as a result of, look what happened here, predators there, pedophiles here. No, I don't do that. You know it's out there. You know it's real. Make the effort to come out. It's so important.
Thank you, Paul. So, in particular, the last part of that message, it sounds there's like a real collective responsibility that we all have. But also the core of the message it sounds like you're saying is this idea of working together, working collaboratively, your desire to see conversations started on difficult, hard topics, but are very important in a way that brings parents and children together, which is, I think, many parents might see this technology and the technology conversation or even the parental relationship as very adversarial. It's my way or their way. It's a battleground. It's a I've they're just not listening, and I think many times dads might see that, right? Kids not listening to me. It's just a very much um, very adversarial is how I'm gonna take that. And I know that even sometimes in our household, that technology is seen as the enemy. So a couple of things that you said, I'm kind of going all over the place here, but I want to touch on a couple of things you said through this, and then I'll get to my question. You talked about what can kids do when I give them the options of how to actually do things online. It goes much better. They see, you talked about podcasting, you talk about vlogging, you talked about getting creative, you talk about coding, you talk about robotics. Those are fantastic ways to leverage to technology and tools, and also captivate and connect with kids' interests. So technology isn't the enemy. It's not like you just ban it, you create these restrictive rules. It's connecting with them, which I think is also very important, but also that collaborative relationship based approach to managing some real risks, but in not if I love your point about it's not a fear-based message. It's a, as your title is, you're an educator. So you're equipping, you're empowering parents and children to leverage a tool that's out there for their benefit and in a positive way. So for me, that's a really powerful part of your message that I think, as I guess I'm speaking to dads and we're talking to dads, is you know, it takes some skills, I think, though, to be able to do that, to not get caught in the power struggle or the adversarial approach to this. I've got to set the rules and my kids are going to resist these rules. And what do we do? So as a dad, as a educator, can you talk to the audience about what can they do or what approaches have you seen and that you're also employing that will really help them shift this topic area or even this approach to much more collaborative working together relationship based than this adversarial maybe dictatorial or controlling aspect.
I'm a firm believer in rules, guidelines, and consequences.
Okay.
I'm a firm believer that parents need to have rules in place for their children in terms of how they use technology, guidelines, when they can use it. For example, 9 o'clock, not at 9 o'clock in their bedrooms by themselves with the door closed, connect the internet. And if kids fail to abide by those rules and guidelines, then there needs to be a consequence. I don't subscribe to strike one, strike two, strike three, strike 10, and we'll give you 15,000 chances. When you ground a kid with rules and consequences, yes, they'll learn the hard way sometimes, but at least they'll learn. It was something I was brought up with. You know, I wasn't told twice or three times, many times in my life, because I would look at my dad. He'd give me that look. I respect the look, and I listened. So, as a foundation, they still need to know we're a parent. To answer your question, I believe we can now take that, combine it with, look, I may not understand everything you're doing online, but I'm here to understand it. I'm here to work with you to help me be more compassionate about the things you're going through that perhaps I wasn't exposed to when I was growing up. Let them know that you're invested in their lives. Don't discount what is happening. Don't say that's Generation Alpha stuff. That's Gen Z stuff. And when I was growing up, no, remove yourself when you were growing up and talk about what's going on. And you may not have to talk about it technically. You may have to talk about it. You remember that saying from a 35,000 foot level and say, help me understand because I'm still your parent. I have years of human experience, which I'm trying to help you with, but I'm trying to help you in the capacity that you're dealing with now, which is technology. And so we have to have rules to protect our kids. But I've always stated to parents, hard rules perhaps diminish in grade 8 or 9. And then we transition from rules to softer rules and then more relationships. One of the keys to online safety is developing healthy, transparent relationships with our children. And this is a message I tell parents literally as I summarize my evening. I want you to tell your child, you can come to me for anything. I may be angry. I may be disappointed. I may be really upset, but I love you. I'm always going to be there for you. And I'm going to get the answers you need. Because if our kids fear us because of judgment, shame, or embarrassment, they go to their friends. That doesn't end up with good results. If they come to us because they don't fear judgment, shame, or embarrassment, then we may not have the answers for them right away. But you know what? You can go to a school principal, a school counselor, the school district, the local police. You can contact individuals like Paul Davis and say, hey, I'm going through a situation. What is your suggestion? And you'll find the answer for your child, because we don't all have the answers. That's why we work collectively to ask answers. And for the dads listening out there is no shame in asking for help when it comes to any of this stuff. Whether you are, in the home with your spouse, whether you're a single dad raising 2 or 3 kids, don't be afraid to ask for help. Let them know they can come to you. Let them know you are a human being. You're allowed to feel anger and disappointment. It's natural, but they must know at the end of the day, you love them, you will be there for them, and we're going to work through this together. And so the understanding that they can approach you is key. At the same time, knowing, all right, I got rules though. I got to respect them because I got to respect my parents, my guardians. But that communication piece is the most important part of all this conversation. Communication and relationship. It is the foundation of those 3 pillars that I talked about earlier on.
Nice. Yeah, very powerful indeed. A couple different thoughts, and then I think I got a specific question I'd like you to talk about. So, you mentioned earlier about no shame in admitting you made a mistake, right? If you haven't had rules, if you've been allowing these things to go through, and just
Yep.
owning up to it, say, you know what, hey, I didn't know, I didn't understand, but unfortunately, now we're going to have to make some changes. So, basically, the power of that, you're just admission. And then you just talked there about the power of not making mistakes as well. So certainly very important point, and I want want dads to take that message home, certainly. But I was also thinking, you've also talked about dads needing to step up, and I want, if you would be willing to talk more about what role do you think dads can really take in this whole process of working with our kids around technology.
It's not that they're going to take a specific role. It should be an equal role to their significant other, because I believe that the responsibility should be divided equally amongst the home. And the role, as although it should be equal, can be skewed to the child that has the connection with that parent. So I'll give you a quick stat on. I know I'm going to divert a little, but let's come back to make a point. Sextortion is something that is impacting, in Canada, 91% boys 12 to 19 years of age. Okay. When I look at the last 37 parents that I've helped out, all right, and this is going to be perhaps interesting for the listeners to hear. The last 30 parents that called me, where I helped them out because their boys, either 12 upwards of 18 years of age, had taken a picture and they were being what's called sextorted. They're being extorted for the images they sent. They're being demanded money. Over the last 37, 34 were moms calling on behalf of their 12 to 18-year-old sons. So where am I going with this? In some families, you've got that boy relating more to the mom. Great. In some families, it's the mothers and the daughters. In some families, it's the fathers and the daughters, the father and the son. I don't care. In the home, if we can find who's got that compatibility, that comfort level, you know what that is, you max out on it. I'm very fortunate, and I mean this sincerely. I had amazing relationships. I have amazing relationships with my daughters. But my daughters will still go to mom for certain things. I don't get upset about that. That's what their comfort level is. Great. My daughters, and believe it or not, some of their friends will come to me for certain things when it comes to technology and sensitive topics. Why? Because they feel they can. I'm blessed when I say that. You know where your relationship is, maximize it. So incredibly important. So the responsibility should be equal amongst the home, This is me speaking as a parent, not as a cyber guy. But if you know that you have a relationship strength with, and you got 5 kids in your home, and maybe it's with 2 of them, you're there. You should be there for all of them. You are, but focus on those 2 because those other 3 maybe have the relationship with your spouse. Fantastic. Divide it up, but you know where your strengths are. It doesn't mean you have to be there for everyone and make someone feel uncomfortable because that can cause tension. So long as they're comfortable with you, that's your you know what? You're the expert in that field. They come to you because they're comfortable and only you can figure out who that is. And so
Okay.
max out on that.
Which goes along with your message of, having them feel comfortable to bring anything to you in general. Just that whole
Yeah.
communication piece
Yeah.
connected. Okay. Well, let's go back to I have an idea I wanted to share with you and get your thoughts. You're talking about rules, you're talking about guidelines, you're talking about developing some structure around how this technology is happening in your home.
Mhm.
What about the importance of the example that a parent sets with their use of technology? And let me tell you a brief story. So we attended. Dove had an event in April, Social Media and Young Minds. It was the premiere of this show about, or of the short video about, the potential damage that social media can make. It's Mary Esposito and her daughter's battle with an eating disorder stemming from her involvement in social media. And in that, the host was talking about the challenge of, she had daughters of her own, and she catches herself struggling with some of these ideas, some of these images, some of these expectations that even her as an adult deals with, and also putting the technology down and navigating that. And so, what can you talk to us? How important is it that we monitor our own selves and then set a healthy example for our kids in this process of having integrity, I'd say, in being able to then establish healthy rules, guidelines, and boundaries in the home?
Yeah. Model positive behavior. My golden rule is, I walk around with 4 to 5 smartphones. These these mean nothing to me in front of my daughters, my wife. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if we're fortunate to be sitting at a table, there are no devices. Nothing is more important. Uh, Drew, you're important to me because you wanted me to come on your podcast, but if I'm having dinner with my daughters, your email will wait until I'm done.
Okay.
My friends are very important to me. Send a text message. I'll get to that text message when I'm done. When I'm at a dinner, people have seen me. People have walked up to me in restaurants like, "You really don't have no. You know what I represent. I don't have phones at a restaurant. I don't have phones in my home. We respect each other. So I lead by positive messaging by example. So parents, the best thing you can do is model positive behavior, put your phones away, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And besides you're modeling that, you know what else you're doing? You're able to connect with your kids because kids at the dinner table can give away a lot. Have they lost their appetite? Are they shrugging their shoulders? Are they not as conversational? Those are signs of bullying. Perhaps something's going on in their lives. But if you're too focused on eating and having a phone and then glancing at Instagram and looking whatever other people are, you're missing the clear signs in front of you of what might be happening in your child's life. So we are setting a positive example by making sure we don't have tech and showing respect for one another. But the little hidden element is that you're actually understanding what's going on. That should be the time where we're catching up with our kids. What about beds? All right. I know a lot of parents, and there was a study that I read a year and a half ago, which stated that 56% of people look at their phone as the last thing they do before they close their eyes. I'm thinking, is this where we're at right now? So we don't want our kids having tech in the bedroom. So parents, 30 minutes before you go to bed, turn that phone off, put it away. That's from a sleep expert, by the way, that I spoke to on one of my on Facebook Lives, just to get a good night's sleep. But if you do that, you're also showing, hey, you don't have tech in the bedroom. I'm not bringing my phone to my bedroom. I'm going to get a good night's sleep. All these little things they see. Otherwise, you become a hypocrite. You're at dinner table, you say no phones, but you're on your phone. You say no tech in the bedroom, but you're on your phone until you pass out and your phone falls on your chest as you're falling asleep. They're seeing all this. So we need to model positive behavior and limit the amount of time you are on social media. Because if you're telling them take breaks, limit your time, but you're on Instagram and TikTok 24/7, again, we've got a bit of a conflict. So limit your time, spend more quality time with obviously family, interacting. When you've got that time available and you've got literally nothing else to do, everyone's entitled to go and scroll what somebody else is eating and vacation and what you're absolutely allowed to. But there's a time and a place, limit it, but make sure it's not at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's not as you're falling asleep in your bed. These little things our kids will pick up and observe and say, all right, you know what? We all follow the same rules. Because the one thing that I notice parents have done in the past is say, well, I'm an adult, you're a kid, different rules. Now, I do get criticized. Sometimes my daughter's walking by and they're like, Dad, you're on your laptop. And I have to remind them that, and I'm not doing this at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but sometimes they'll walk around joking like, Dad, you're on your laptop. I run a business. I got to get the principles. I got to respond to emails. So when I'm on there, I'm not consuming. You see, the majority of kids consume. I'm running a business. I have to be there, and it's my conduit for communicating with the world and researching and planning and booking and connecting with Drew for a podcast. Like this is all business 101. So yeah, I do spend a lot of time on my laptop, but it's business related. When I'm done technology, I'm one of those individuals that's completely off the grid. In fact, I posted on my Facebook page just last week. I said, "Hey, summer's here. If you don't see me post for 2, 3, 4 days, I'm off the grid. I'm literally not checking social media, email, nothing. I just disconnect and I lead by example and say, hey, girls, let's disconnect for a couple of days. Tell everyone you're off the grid. We're just going to go and reconnect with nature or do whatever. So I model that behavior so they see it. So these are little extras that you can apply in your life as well.
Yeah. I think on that last point, that's so powerful and important, being able to model it, live it out yourself, especially for the fact that they are always watching. And I
Yeah.
love the comment that your daughter's like, "Hey, Dad, you're on your laptop." Yes, there's a reason, and you're able to communicate that reason, and it's slightly different. And I really love your point that when children are on, they're always consuming.
Right.
And that's where the real danger can lie, without those limits, without those. And I also heard this idea of healthy boundaries, boundaries that you establish for yourself around technology, around your use of it. So I just think that's such a powerful and important message. Well, covered a lot of ground, lots of insight, lots of valuable things. I just want to say thank you so much, Paul, for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Where can people get connected to you or learn more about what you have to share?
Well, if you haven't seen my presentations, but you want to keep up with me daily, go to my Facebook page. It's simple, Paul Davis Tips, TIPS. If you want to have me visit your school, parent community, my website is socialnetworkingsafety.net, but I'll simplify it. You can go to pauldavis.life, Life. It'll forward you to my website. So pauldavis.life, or if you want my daily updates, tips, tricks, concerns, and sometimes just, make you smile, Facebook. I know you all still have it. That's where the majority of the followers are, and I'll keep you updated daily. And it's the number one communication platform as well. I do get emails from parents, but it's amazing how many DMs I get from parents through Facebook. So I know people say it's for old people. Yeah, you're still using it. I'm there for you as well.
Good point. Okay, well, Paul, again, I just want to say thank you so much. The work that you're doing, the message that you're communicating, and the value that I think you're bringing to our children and our youth and our parents who are supporting our children is so needed. So anything we can do to help support you and continue getting you opportunities to share that message, let us know. I'm happy to help you out. So thanks again
Reach
for
out
being on the
anytime.
Dad
I'm
Central
happy to be
Show.
here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Well, that was an informative, powerful, but very valuable conversation. And what I take from that in particular are some of the fundamental principles of establishing healthy rules, healthy guidelines, and then being able to model it yourself. And that core of being able to communicate in a way that is at your child's age and stage of development. And I really love Paul's point about what are the things that they can do with technology. What are ways we can tap into them leveraging their curiosity or their creativity using the tools that are constructive, that may not be necessarily destructive as some of the dangers and concerns we have. So with that, I just want to say thanks so much for tuning in to the Dad Central Show. Remind you that the Dad Central Show is sponsored by Government Plus Care. Dove Men plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there is a positive impact. Here at Dad Central, we want to provide resources and support for fathers, and we've got a variety of ways that you can connect with us. You can email, in particular, the show and give us your feedback, your comments, your questions, or even some guest suggestions. And you can do that by emailing podcast@dadcentral.ca. You can go to our website, dadcentral.ca, to gather a bunch of resources or connect with the offers that we have for you. We've got a brand new guide to help dads in the area of staying calm and being more peaceful parenting. So go ahead to dadcentral.ca and check that out. See if you can download our 7-step guide. And so finally, if you wanted to catch episodes of the Dad Central Show, you can do that at dadcentral.ca/podcast. So thanks so much for joining us for this show. As Ed likes to say, remember to give yourselves grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Take care, be well. We'll see you next time.